What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Thursday, June 5th. We finally have had openings in the Lori Daybell case and Brandon Boudreaux first up on the stand. I'm breaking today into two separate episodes because I really don't want to miss a minute of Brandon's testimony. And it's going to be a bit of a longer episode. So I thought it would be best to do an episode just on the openings and then later tonight, a recap of Brandon's day on the stand. I will be out in Phoenix next Monday for the week. Reminder, the week after next, there is no trial at all if we get that far. I'll still have my live stream running and I'll keep you guys updated of little things here and there in the chat. So come join us. I'll also be doing some YouTube shorts at breaks, as well as the nightly recap. So make sure you're subscribed over on YouTube and don't forget to hit the little bell icon if you want notifications of when I post new content. Let's jump right into the state openings. Trina K., a Jeep Wrangler, the Texas license plate, no rear tire, and the rear window was tinted and it was parked next to Brandon's driveway. At 9:13 a.m. on October 2nd, 2019, Brandon returned home. The Jeep had been idling there for over an hour. When Brandon turned onto his street, he immediately noticed this Jeep because it was parked close to his driveway. The back of the Jeep was facing towards him, and he immediately noticed there was no rear tire. He saw the Texas license plate, and he saw the back window open. The barrel of a rifle pointed at him, and then bang, he heard a shot. His window shattered right next to him. Brandon hit the accelerator and took off. He turned the corner, drove a block or so away and stopped. He called 911 and told where the Jeep was going. As he was speaking with the 911 operator, he had no idea the bullet hit his car and missed his head by inches. In the back of the Jeep was the defendant's brother, Alex Cox, who was lying in wait with a rifle for Brandon to return home. Lori loaned the Jeep to her brother so he could drive to Arizona to kill Brandon on October 2nd, 2019. That was the goal of Lori and her co-conspirators. In June of 2019, Brandon was still married to Lori's niece, Melanie. Lori and Melanie's were very close, but they both had it out for Brandon. June 25th, Brandon and Melanie's got into an argument, and Brandon learned Lori told his wife that he was gay, that he had hacked into her computer, and Brandon was trying to work with Lori's then-husband, Charles, to take away her Temple recommend. That's a significant event to Mormons. Brandon texted Lori that day to confront her about these lies, but she never responded. By July, Brandon and Melanie's were seeing a mediator and moving forward with divorce. At that time, Lori and Alex lived here in Arizona. You'll learn about an incident in July of 2019 involving Lori and her brother. Police were at her residence taking photos, including photos of the Jeep Wrangler with Texas license plates. They noted Alex had a Ford F-150 pickup truck in Chandler in July of 2019. In August and September, Alex and Lori moved to Rexburg, Idaho, to be close to her soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell. They moved into the same complex. Lori took the Jeep, a Nissan Rogue, and Alex took his truck. Brandon and Melanie's put their house on the market, and Melanie's got a rental. When the house sold, Brandon had to rent a home too. On September 13th, he rented a home in Gilbert, Arizona. His plan was to stay until closings and then move. You will see a text from September 17th, 2019, where Melanie's asked Brandon for his new address. They have children in common, and he gave her his new address. He didn't think anything of it. The defendant's niece was the only one who knew his address. Brandon moved into the rental earlier than expected because Melanie's was visiting Rexburg from September 26th through the 29th to be with the defendant, and Melanie's offered Brandon the kids. Before the shooting, Alex had the windows tinted on the Jeep in Rexburg, Idaho. It cost $200, and he chose the darkest option available so nobody could see him lying in wait. This was the first action taken by Lori in the conspiracy, loaning Alex the Jeep and allowing him to tint the windows so he could lay in wait. That was her first mistake. Also, on September 25th, you'll learn Lori and Alex went to Walmart in Idaho Falls, and Alex bought a burner phone with cash. They each have their own cell phones, and Alex's phone was using Wi-Fi inside the Walmart. Lori's cell phone was using cell phone towers in the area of that Walmart. They knew he would need a phone when he drove here, but you don't bring your own phone. That way, he could have contact while coming here and back, but he made a mistake. You can still use a burner phone to access your Gmail account, and he did. One search warrant executed was on Alex's Homer J. Maximus Google account. Searches he did show window tinting in Rexburg, shooting ranges, angles and trajectories. And the day before, on October 1st, 2019, and the day of the shooting, October 2nd, he searched for Brandon's address. After the shooting, he searched for how to get away on a back road. He knew he hadn't killed Brandon. And at this point, Brandon is calling 911, and Alex searches different cities that would take him on back roads. Search warrants from Lori's Gmail, Lolly Time Forever, shows on September 30th, the day Alex left, Lori searched how to get the seat out of a Jeep Wrangler, and also a YouTube search as well. She continued to be a co-conspirator by searching how to remove that seat. This is her second mistake. On September 30th, she also aided Alex by becoming his alibi. You'll hear from FBI agent Nick Balance that on September 30th, Alex's phone moved from Alex's unit to Lori's, and over the course of the next few days, his phone stayed with Lori. On September 30th, the burner phone started moving to Arizona. On October 2nd, an hour before the shooting, Lori had Alex's phone call her phone for 24 minutes to make it look like Alex was still in Idaho. Both phones using the cell tower there in Idaho. The Jeep was seen on license plate readers. You'll see photos of the Jeep near Holbrook on I-40. Police recovered the Jeep in Rexburg, and search warrants found a receipt from October 1st, 2019 from Mesa, Arizona, the day before the shooting. The receipt was from a restaurant. The burner phone was there, and he was Googling Brandon's address around the time we see the receipt. In Rexburg, October 1st, Lori goes to a storage unit and rents Unit C52. And the next day, after the shooting, she brings her soon-to-be husband with her, and they put the rear tire and seat into the storage unit so Alex could lie in wait for Brandon to return home. October 2nd, the morning of the shooting, Alex was searching for Brandon's address. His burner phone he bought in Idaho is in Gilbert, Arizona, and he's using his phone near Melanie's house. She knew Brandon had their 3 kids who would be dropped off at school, and then she and Brandon would meet at a park to exchange their youngest. While Brandon was leaving to take his kids to school, the burner phone moves to his residence to wait for him, and the Jeep was kept running. But what Melanie didn't know is Brandon was going to the gym after dropping the kids off, and Alex had to wait longer. A neighbor saw the Jeep as he was backing out. It was nose to nose with another vehicle, and it stood out as unusual in the neighborhood. Unusual enough that he looked in his rearview mirror and saw a Texas license plate. This was 30 minutes before Brandon got home. When Brandon got home, Alex was ready with the rifle. He lifted the window because the tire wasn't on it. He fired one shot, and luckily, Brandon wasn't hit. Brandon was driving a Tesla. They don't have frames for the window, and that's where the bullet hit. And you'll see photos of this. It's just above his head. The window remained in the door as Brandon drove off. He came back home to his driveway, and when he put the car in park, the door opens automatically, and the window fell out. You'll hear the 911 call. Brandon is out of breath from fear. And on October 3rd, Alex is back in Rexburg, and he and Lori go to the storage unit, removing the tire and the back seat. They also Googled news from Gilbert, shooting of Brandon, to see what police knew. How did investigators find out Lori was involved? When interviewing Brandon, they asked who would do this. He said Lori and Alex. Lori had lived in Texas, and the Jeep had Texas license plates. He also believes this shooting and the events of July 11th were related. July 11th, as you guys know, the day Charles Vallow was shot and killed. Gilbert police reached out to the Chandler police and learned about the Jeep with the Texas license plates. The same Jeep seen on the license plate reader coming into Arizona. Investigators learned Lori and Alex were living in Rexburg, and on November 1st, police in Idaho went to the townhomes and saw Lori, Alex, and Chad Daybell. They didn't see the Jeep that day, but on November 4th, they went back and saw the Jeep with the tire back on. It was impounded. And on November 18th, Gilbert police flew to Idaho to process the Jeep. Gunshot residue is microscopic. Those kits of the testing were sent to the Phoenix Police Department, where it was found to be positive of gunshot residue from the rear of the Jeep. It was consistent with a gun being fired. They did DNA swabs on the Jeep and compared that to a blood blot from Alex Cox, and DNA profiles were created. It was a mixture of multiple people, but the major contributor was Alex. Multiple search warrants were executed. You'll see maps of Lori and Alex's cell phones and the burner phone associated with Alex's Gmail. It shows Alex go to Arizona and back to Idaho, and the phone was never used again. The only calls made and received were from Chad Daybell. The evidence will prove Lori conspired with Alex and others to kill Brandon. And the prosecutor asked that the jury find her guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. It was Lori's turn, and I have to say there were a lot of objections in her openings. She talks about laws and how they affect trials and dictate how things will go. In order for someone to be charged with a crime as I have been, there is an objection. She says they've charged me with a serious crime. Sometimes they go to a grand jury. Objection. The judge tells the jury to disregard that statement. The state will then take the evidence and present to you a story, a theory, a hypothesis. The prosecution, the Gilbert police, they weren't present, so they make up a theory to present to you. They weren't there when this alleged shooting occurred. Conspiracy is when two or more people knowingly and willingly participate to commit a crime. Conspiracy is an ancient word seen in the Bible on many occasions. When Judas conspired against Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, there's an objection, and the judge tells Lori, "You're arguing. Openings are not arguments," but he gives her a little wiggle room and tells her to go on. Lori says Cain conspired against Abel, his brother, and the allegation is, "I conspired with my brother to kill my niece's husband." As you see the evidence, you will see no animosity between Brandon and myself. I personally had no motivation to have any harm come to Brandon. I've known him since he was marrying my niece. We've had a friendly relationship all the time I've known him. There's an objection that ends up in a sidebar. Melanice and I are close because my sister, her mother, passed away when she was young, but we're more like mother and daughter. We were in each other's lives daily. I was there for their wedding and the birth of all 4 of their children, and I was close to all 4 of their children. You will learn Brandon was shot at. He wasn't hurt, and he wasn't even sure what happened. Brandon immediately blamed me, which begs the question, was I an enemy to him? That's news to me, and hopefully, by the end of this trial, we will have answers. At first, Brandon speaks of a puke green-colored Jeep and tells dispatch it's a camo green color on the phone. The neighbor said it was a dark blue Jeep that was parked. Brandon quickly hired a private investigator to find out where I was living out of the state of Arizona and to inform the police. He exchanged information about my whereabouts and the financial dealings of my niece. Brandon wasn't satisfied with the investigation the Gilbert police was doing, so he hired a private investigator to follow his wife. He had the VIN number of a Jeep and gave it to police. After that, he quickly changed his story from a camo green Jeep to a gray Jeep. He continued to give information to Detective Pillar as he found information out through his private investigator. Detective Pillar and Brandon discussed how Melanice could have gained financially if Brandon had died around October 2nd, 2019. This is what a conspiracy looks like. 2 people trying to set up another person for a crime. My niece is named as a co-conspirator, but hasn't been charged with a crime, but I have. There is an objection that's sustained. I wasn't living in Arizona at the time of this alleged incident and unaware this took place. I was close to Alex, but I didn't know his every move, and the same for Melanice. She didn't know where he was at all times. Brandon and Alex had a good relationship until this accusation. They would laugh and talk. Alex was the family comedian. He died in December 2019 of natural causes, so he's not here to defend himself. There is an objection here. The state has alleged several co-conspirators, but I'm the only one charged. You will be the judge. The state has the burden to prove a crime has been committed and that I committed the crime. I don't have to testify. I don't have to put up any evidence. They have to prove I conspired with my brother to murder Brandon. And right now, I am presumed innocent. I want you to look and decide if a crime was committed at all. Did a shooting occur? Only Brandon claims it did, and only Brandon names me and Alex. You'll learn Brandon owned a gun and learned to shoot it. They were going through a divorce. Brandon filed for divorce but blamed me. The information the Gilbert Police Department and Detective Pillar learned about me and Alex was from Brandon. Brandon and Detective Pillar were on a first-name basis. Look at the motivation of Brandon and the Gilbert Police Department. I need you to decipher what really happened here because I'm the only one being asked to pay a consequence. There is an objection that's sustained. You'll hear many references to the state versus Lori Daybell. Who is the state? The state is the prosecutors. Objection sustained. You're brought in to stand between the state and me. Objection sustained. You're here to say if a crime has been committed at all, if I committed the crime, and if the state proved a crime was committed. If they didn't prove I committed this crime, then I remain innocent. In this case, you'll hear a lot of speculation. They'll try to convince you using innuendo, speculation, and insinuation, and they hope this will be enough. You'll witness a power struggle between the state and me. Objection sustained. Because they want to convince you that a fact is speculation and innuendo. They want to convince you they know what I was thinking when they didn't know at all. You have to decide. I implore you to listen carefully and ask if the state's theory makes sense. What motivation would I have? What malice have I shown to anyone? What benefit would I gain? I'm a person who loves all people, and I have no malice towards anyone, not even to the prosecutors who try to convict me. Objection sustained. I'm all about spreading love and will continue to do so after this trial, no matter the results. And that was the end of her openings. Look for a recap of Brandon Boudreaux's testimony later tonight. That is it for this episode. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.